Hey everyone, so I'm about to interview a good friend of mine, Rick Rayner, who has been riding for over 35 years. He's very fast on the track. He has a super interesting history. He was once a professor of physics and taught physics. He is an aviator and a private pilot. He's an engineer. And he's one of those people that knows a lot of things about a lot of things. And I find those sort of people really interesting. So this is an interview really focused on track and learning on the track and all the things that he brings to that. He's also a virtual online track coach, which is something he just does for fun. It's not really something that he's trying to build a business around. It's really just something that he does to give back to the rider community because he loves to teach. The thing I love about this interview is that at the end of the interview, we actually end up doing an unplanned impromptu coaching session because I had all sorts of concerns about my upcoming track season, and he sort of was great, and we just kind of went into this coaching session. So at the end of the interview, you'll actually get a glimpse of that. It gives you a view of how he would do an online coaching session. So I hope you really enjoy this. I really enjoy talking to Rick, and I'm looking forward to getting out and track of him this year. All right, cheers. One of the things that I've talked a lot about with friends and with a few of you that have contacted me on the channel is, there's more to motorcycling and there's more to talking about it, whether it be on YouTube or at a cafe or at the track, than just purely the motorcycle itself. And there's an old saying that says, you meet the most interesting people on a motorcycle. And for me, that's certainly been true. And whether that be touring across the world, across countries, riding to all sorts of godforsaken places and bumping into all sorts of interesting people, or be it on the track. And I've talked about how I only started riding on the track 5 years ago. I thought I was a good motorcyclist until I started riding on the track after 30 years on the street. And during that time, I've met some really interesting people. And I think one of the great things about starting the journey towards the track as an older guy is that you kind of learn how to listen better when you're older. And when you meet people that are interesting and you're willing to listen and learn, it can open up both great learnings and great friendships. So with that said, I want to introduce you to my good friend and an interesting character, Rick Rayner. And Rick is one of those guys that I met at the track about 5 years ago, and we've become pretty good mates, and I've learned a lot from him, and his story is really great. So welcome, Rick.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited. It's great to see you, by the way. Haven't seen you for a while.
The first time I met you was when you blew by me like a streak of lightning in that pink tracksuit you were wearing.
Where was it?
At the Ridge Motorsport Park in Washington State. Well, that was the last time I saw you on a track, and we'll talk about that. But the first time I actually saw you was about 5 years ago when you just completely I would just be riding. I was learning to ride the track, and I would just I would just hear this fucking RSV4 like, and then you would just go by me, and you're like, because you're taller than me. You're a tall guy. How tall are you?
6'2".
6'2". And I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? And then
that was my red suit. That's my infamous red suit. Yeah,
red suit. And so we met, and your story is interesting. And the thing I like about your story is you're obviously, you love motorcycles in all sorts of shapes and forms and sizes, but your history and what you've done in your life has shaped so much about how you approach the sport. So I thought maybe we could start at the beginning. Tell us a little about who you are, how long you've been riding, and what got you into motorcycles way back when.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna try and talk fast. When I was a teenager, there was a motocrosser named Mark Barnett. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I think he was a Suzuki guy. And he had a big mustache and blonde hair, and he was kind of a badass. But uh, World Superbikes. I don't even know if it was around back then. I'm not, MotoGP probably was. In fact, I know it was, but I didn't really know about it. So
Mm.
basically, motocross was really the only thing that was being, marketed to everybody. And so anyway, I had to go buy a two-stroke dirt bike, and I started riding and raced and found out how physically crazy demanding that is. And so then I went from that to a Honda 750 Interceptor on the street. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let's
Ah,
back up. A Kawasaki KZ 440 first
nice.
street bike. Then I went to the Interceptor, and then I went to a GSXR 750. Um, and I think that was the last bike I had. I had that for a long time. The light bulb went on in my head that I needed to go learn how to ride.
Ah.
Very much probably like you. But that has to do with like a midlife thing where, I was 40 years old at that point,
Mm.
and that's where we're making money, we're getting things paid off, you have some residual cash. I got to go see who I can pay to teach me how to ride a motorcycle. I got to do it. And so I just literally Googled it, and California Superbike School won the Google challenge.
So wait a minute. So you've been riding though for how many years when this happened? Like you've been riding on the street for how long?
Oh, probably, well, I was 40, so probably, I was dirt biking at 12, I think,
Yeah.
but probably on the street for 25 years.
Was there a moment that sort of made you think, well, shit, maybe I should go and learn the ride better on the track? Or did you think, because I thought I was a really good rider. I turned up at the track thinking, oh, what more have I
Yeah.
got to learn? But what
Yeah.
was there a moment for you, like a light bulb moment of some sort?
I wanted the experience of riding on a racetrack, and I wanted to go fast. Uh, and I didn't know how to do it. But I did think I was in the same boat you are, and my background and also the superbike school. I would say that 90% of the people that go to any school from the street think they know how to ride pretty good. A high, high, high percentage of people you find don't really even know how to steer the motorcycle.
So you did a search. The California Superbike School came up, and had you heard of Keith's book before then or anything, or was
No,
it all totally new? Oh, okay.
no,
So
no, no.
tell me about this. Tell me more about that. So you did your search.
Yeah, and I just signed up. I just signed up for I think it was a 2-day camp. I used their bike. I didn't have a street bike at that time. And I remember standing around in the morning, it was cold, and everybody's just kind of sizing everybody else up. It was so funny. Anyway, so they had the Kawasaki's back then,
Mm.
and it was really, really fun. The first night I got home, I was so tired and so just fatigued beyond belief. I couldn't even walk across the street to go to dinner. And I just thought, I don't really want to go back tomorrow. Like maybe this is just not for me. The bike wasn't going where I wanted it to go. I didn't know how to ride, essentially. So I was fighting, looking back at it now, and knowing how to ride too, I can easily just say, I didn't know how to ride. I didn't know how to steer. I didn't know how to do anything right. I was hanging on too tight. I wasn't relaxed. I was literally fighting the motorcycle the entire day.
Did that surprise you? Like, as
Yes.
someone that had been riding since you were, 12, 14 years old, did you have a moment where you felt, shit, I actually don't know how to ride, I don't know how to steer, or was that something that came to you sort of later?
No, that night,
Okay,
that
right,
that, that
right.
night, I basically said, "Hey, I this is going to be a lot of work. I'm not in good enough shape to do this." I was really like just mentally defeated and
Mm,
physically. It was
mm,
just a defeat, but it was really fun.
mm.
And so what I did, because I was 40, so I had like some inkling of maturity in me, and also having been through many other things in my lifetime, I knew not to make just a snap decision like that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to crawl across the street and have dinner and come back and go to bed, and I'm going to make the decision in the morning. And I got up in the morning and I felt pretty good, so I went back to the track. And the rest is history, baby.
So how many track days and how many California Superbike School hosted days would you say you've done since then?
uh, it, um, Absolutely over 100 level 4 schools. I think it's probably between 120 and 130. It's a lot. It's a lot. That a huge part of my life changed that that weekend when I went to this school.
I might have this wrong, but I think you've been a physics teacher. You're a qualified pilot. You've worked as a photographer for like a ballet company. You're an engineer. You do motorcycle coaching. Like it's kind of like my channel. I never really set this channel up because I want to be an influencer or something. You know, I don't have a face for video. I have a face for podcasts. I set it up because I really just wanted to help people, and a lot of people had told me that what I told them was useful. And you also just love helping people, right? And so tell me about, you know, because when I talk to you, I can see the physicist in you. Like, yeah, like when you ride a motorcycle, you have to understand that it's that it's all physics. And when you understand physics and you understand how all of that works, it just sort of comes together. So tell me a little bit about how this experience of yours has shaped you as a former teacher and someone who loves to educate others.
One big thing about being a coach or a tutor or an instructor or whatever is you learn a lot as the instructor. I mean, there's no perfect instructor, and there's no I know everything instructor, but and I learned this in the physics world and in the mathematics world. You know, I was pretty good at all that stuff, but I didn't really understand like the nitty gritty of that stuff until I sat in front of students for almost 20 years, right? And the perspective that you get from having to explain things in different ways, different avenues, different mentalities. People look at things differently. People are overconfident. People are, there's just everybody's so different, and you have to figure out a way to, first of all, gain their confidence so that they'll listen to you, and then figure out a way to discover where they are, exactly where they are, and then how far back you need to go to start over.
Right.
You never get to go forward first. You always have to go back and rebuild something to get them on the right track. Typically, it's very rare that somebody's just right on the precipice of the big light bulb going off and you just have to tell them one thing. It doesn't usually work that way. So that has shaped, just being an instructor has shaped me quite a bit. And being a student, I've been a student of a bunch of stuff, like you said, aviation, musical instruments, music. So, learning and instructing has been a big, huge part of my life, and I just love it.
Because I mean, one of the things you told me, which I thought was so obvious, but not obvious until you told me, it was like, Angus, you got to understand that a motorcycle is just a gyroscope. It's a gyroscope, and gyroscopes don't want to fall over; they want to stay upright. So you've got that going for you straight up the back. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And I think that was when I coined the nickname for you, the Professor. So why I've met a lot of pilots that ride motorcycles fast. A lot of pilots, actually, I met them at the school. What is that a thing, or is it just me? And like are there elements around? Because I think a lot of people think about motorcycling as get on a motorcycle, learn how to ride it. But actually, there's a lot of mental preparation. There's a lot of understanding the physics, understanding, having a plan, which you have when you play in a bit. But before you even get on the motorcycle, how do those things come into play in the way you teach?
I think the easiest way I could explain that is that there's systems. And yes, you're not imagining it. I mean, I've seen so many ex-military pilots at the racetrack, in addition to just private pilots like me, because they're systems, and we love to learn the system because we want to manipulate it. You know what I mean? Because it gives you power and control. And um, some people don't quite get that, and so they try to control too much. And when you have a system, you need to break that system down into little pieces of understanding and figure out how one thing affects another thing, right? And how you're going to manipulate certain pieces of the system to get something you need without affecting, or maybe purposely affecting, other parts of the system. So in aviation, it's checklists, you know, it's communications is a huge subsystem of aviation. It's nice to be good on the radio. If you're not good on the radio, it's not going to be fun, and it's going to be dangerous. So there's subsystems in aviation, and there's subsystems in writing. And that's just kind of how I approach it all. And so it was kind of automatic. I kind of took a lot of what I already had from aviation, and also music. You know, music is a system.
I know that we all like to go fast on a motorcycle on a track, but for me, I actually, like you, when I first started, I was always just so sore after getting off the bike, and I realized that I was holding on too tight, and I was actually holding on too tight on the street as well. So everything hurt, and now I go and do 5 days in a row, and am I sore? Yeah, but I'm not as sore as I used to be because I've figured things out to some degree.
Yeah,
But if you
that's
get back
great.
to the system, so there's something about flow. There's something about the orchestra gets going and it moves from different sections of the orchestra and it just kind of flows. And for me, being on the track has always been kind of like an orchestra, and every corner was a different instrument almost, and had a different rhythm to it. One of the things I've learned at the school, and I know obviously you're a huge fan of the school, as we all are, and of California Superbike School, is they always make you focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And so you get off the bike and you say, so how did I do there, and there? And they'll pull you back and they go, Angus, we're going to talk about one thing. What? So tell me, why is that? Hey, I know you've got questions about every corner on the track, but let's
Oh,
just choose the one. We're going to focus on one corner and one thing. We're going to get that right. And I think the school have publicly about 200, 300 different drills, but there's probably 5 times as many as that. Like, there's so much to unpack there. I think a lot of us just get on a bike and go, right, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to ride and I'm going to get past this guy. But actually, when you focus on the things, it all comes together like an orchestra over time. Yeah.
yes, that's a huge goal for me in writing, is to find that when it all comes together and you can ride and it feels effortless, and you're not working hard and you're relaxed and you're going where you want to go, and everything just seems to come together. That's what excuse me, that's what I'm striving for when I go ride, but I'm not trying to get there in the first half of the day. And I might get there in the middle of the second half of the day. There needs to be a plan. And you know that I'm that guy that says you got to go to the racetrack with a plan.
Yeah.
Because of that, because if you don't have a plan, you're more susceptible to falling into those traps of trying to do too many things or skipping over something. We can talk about risk stacking, which comes
Yeah.
from aviation.
I want to do that. Yeah. Well, so before we get to that, so what do you recommend to have a successful day at the track then? Obviously, there's a plan. There's make sure you go to the toilet before you get on the bike, all that sort of shit. But like, it's just walk me through it at a high level. What's a successful day at the track look like?
Okay. How about, can I just go back 1 second
Yeah.
and answer your previous question, because I didn't do a very good job. Why do we want to just work on one thing?
Yeah.
And if you get a little bit more advanced, maybe a couple things. And I remember talking to Keith Code about this, and that was back when I was doing some boxing instruction. There was a big fight on TV that everybody watched. It might have been, Canelo Alvarez or whoever it was. And they sat down in the corner, and their coach in the corner was just telling them, was just basically like, you gotta move your feet, and you gotta you know, parry the jab. And he just told him like 6 things. And I'm sitting there thinking, this boxer who's in there getting beat on
Hmm.
doesn't want to have to can't keep track of 6 things, because he's just in this environment where he's stressed out. It's just nonsense. And so the same thing applies at the racetrack. Um, it just doesn't work if you have too many things to work on. You really need a system, which they have a very good one. And you just need to try to get through it one thing at a time. Otherwise, it's just sensory overload, because we're all battling the big fear
Hmm.
monger, the big thing about going fast, and, you know, stress risers and tunnel vision and
Yeah,
all
sure.
the stuff that happens when you go to the racetrack. If you want to keep all that other stuff working, you really just need to do one thing.
Does that kind of get to the risk stacking piece? Like you're thinking about all these things, and it's funny. I went out for a ride on the street today, and I don't ride on the street as much as I used to. And on the street, obviously the lanes are much smaller than on a big sweeping track. There's cars that can hit you, lampposts that can hit you. And on the track, if all of a sudden it's like a freeing experience, but you
Yeah.
still have the risk you have, and you're still scared of stuff, right?
But the
Sure.
way I look at risk stacking, generally speaking, is you want to try to mitigate risks. And when you're not paying attention, they stack up. And that's when you get caught out. And I can explain, because you were there when I crashed last. I
Hmm.
have that risk stack all figured out, right? So I know exactly what happened, how it happened, and it was a risk stacking problem. It's a great example of it. So that's how I think of risk stacking.
Yeah,
How,
like what do you recommend to have a successful day at the track? You're willing to listen and learn, and a lot of us aren't because we've got egos the size of my house. Um, I think that for me was a big one, was just being open to learning.
don't listen to all the people at work, first of all. Even really fast riders uh, don't necessarily make good information reservoirs.
Mm.
So the mission would be, in my opinion, to find a good coach
Hmm.
and go there.
Yeah.
And it might not be at the track. It might be, what I've done, which is online. And you tell people, you give people a plan, and then you send them off to a coach, right?
Interesting.
So that can make people feel, because the very, very bottom line is you want your confidence to be as high as possible and your anxiousness to be as low as possible, right?
Yeah, that's helpful. You saw the interview I did with Misty Hurst and Mallory Dobbs, both professional motorcyclists. Misty's been teaching for a long time, and asked them a similar question. And Misty was like, start with a coach,
Yeah.
get with a coach. Now, you talk about online. So, wait a minute. So, you're saying that online motorcycle coaching, how does that work?
Yes. If you can find somebody to talk to, why not? Because, you remember when I told you when I Googled the Superbike school and I was headed down there? Are you the one that told me last week that you had butterflies, or was that someone else?
No, that must be someone else.
Okay. Well, somebody was going to the track last weekend and they had butterflies. They got a new big, powerful motorcycle, and they're a good rider, but they were just not confident. Great. Do I need to be there physically to have a conversation about that? Or can I help
Mm.
somebody develop a plan to go to the racetrack with a plan that's just going to do nothing more than improve their confidence? Like it improves your confidence just to have a plan. Say,
Yeah.
look, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to start out this way. I'm going to make sure I'm doing this and this and this. What I thought you said something to me the other day too about
I think what I said to you is like, I'm getting better. I think you've witnessed me get better, and
for sure.
I'm faster, and I'm doing close to 2 minutes now at the Ridge, which was in Washington State, which is a big milestone for me. But
Huge.
I started getting better when I went down in displacement. I started riding like 660 bike, right?
Yeah.
Because I started out on a big Panigale V4S because I thought that's what you needed, and I soon realized that actually. So I got faster, quicker on a smaller bike. That's a whole nother discussion. But now I'm riding a leader bike, my V2 Panigale, and I had a few sessions on it last year, but this year I'm going to go all in on it. And I'm a little. It's funny, every time I get to the track first day, I'm always nervous. And then when I start riding, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember now.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right. And
That's
I'm
what you
like,
said. Yeah.
I'm always nervous. And like
It's
there's a
normal. It's
yeah,
normal.
yeah, it
But
is
what you
right.
want to do is you want to work on your risk stacking and you want to make a plan. And
Yeah.
then you're going to feel better. If you believe in your plan, that should make you feel better, right?
Yeah.
In an
Yeah.
airplane, when you're going to fly an airplane from Portland to I don't know, Idaho somewhere, right? You can just get in it and go, or you can calculate your fuel load, you can calculate your weight distribution, you can make a flight plan and file a flight plan. So if you get lost, somebody knows you didn't show up on time. All of that stuff, even though it's necessary, isn't an absolute, right? So lots of people get in their planes and they just go fly without a flight plan. It's
Mhm.
stupid, but they do it. So checking your fuel, checking the motor, checking your magnetos, doing all that stuff, it improves your confidence, right? It's more obvious because you're going up into this third dimension. And if you have a catastrophic failure over there, you're going to be finding a place to land,
Mhm.
right? So on a motorcycle, it's the same thing. Just the more information you can go to the track with and have a plan, it should make you feel better about your approach to the day, which
Yeah.
is for sure going to include, I'm not going to go balls to the wall in the first session.
I know my lines are pretty good now. Even you've told me that. And I want to go and ride A group this year for the first time. And I know I can. I'll probably be the slowest in A group. But I know that so long as my lines are good, I'm going to they're going to pass me, fine. But I feel like there's less risk in the A group than in the B group. So when you talk about risk stacking, can you just explain what that means to me? Like, just treat me like I'm a 2-year-old, so I really understand it.
Yeah, so you just want to mitigate risk wherever you can. And if you don't, then you're going to stack them up,
Okay.
basically,
Okay.
right? That's really all it is. So, you know that I'm someone that didn't even ride with tire warmers until,
Yes, I gave you some.
yeah, and that's because I met with the Dunlop engineer guy,
Yeah.
and I got him to tell me the tire temperatures, which they don't publish,
Yeah.
right? But once I understood the operating temperature of the tires, then I understood that I really needed a harder tire in the cold weather. Yeah, a lot of people use soft tires in cold weather and they just shred. So you actually need a harder tire in the colder weather, but it's not going to work unless you have it up to temperature, up to its
Mm.
operating temperature, which is
Yeah.
not ambient, right? So you need tire warmers unless you're going to be out there for 3 laps warming up these tires, right? And so that's the way that I approached it, and that's what convinced me, and that's why to this day I still use tire warmers. But prior to that, I never even used them, right?
Mm.
I just went and warmed the tires up on the racetrack because that's the way I came up.
Mm.
That's what the school does. They don't have tire warmers on 30 motorcycles that the coaches and the students all ride. That would be crazy, right?
Let's talk about body position, man. So, do you have an opinion on body position? Because what I mean with the reason I'm asking is that um, when I started dragging my knee, it was totally surprised me. I didn't give it. At first, I thought there was something wrong with the bike,
Yeah.
but there was a stage where I was just always trying to drag my knee because I thought you had to do that, and actually, that was just creating more risk because I wasn't ready to do that, and then it just happened by mistake. And I see a lot of people just so focused on body position either too early in their learning. And then I look at someone like you, like I'm sure you drag your knee from time to time, but I don't see you drag your knee a lot, but you're one of the fastest people I know. So, and
Mhm.
so tell me about that. I mean, even if you go back to the races of 20 years ago, they were dragging their knee and they're going really fast, right? Or they're all crossed up and still going fast. So tell me what's your opinion on body position?
That's one of the light bulbs you mentioned. You mentioned that a little while ago. That is one of the light bulbs that went off in my head one day. Because a lot of the stuff we learn, we're actually, when you're learning as a student, you're really teaching yourself at the end of
Mm,
the day.
Mm.
What you need is a good person shoveling you information in the way that you need it. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to learn it. You're the one that has to understand it. As part of my normal day, I would go think about what made sense. And what made sense one day is I was giving way too much energy and thinking to the knee. It's like, why am I worrying about this knee thing? It's like, I started thinking about the physics of it, and then it just made sense to me that the knee is just ridiculous. I mean, you can hang way off the motorcycle and drag your elbow now. That's a big thing. Who cares? It's so overrated. Let's watch MotoGP where they can get 65-degree lean angle, right? They're
Mm.
not hanging off the bike at 65 degrees because they can't fit anything under there. They're on top of the bike at
Right.
65 degrees. I think I've sent some pictures around about that. So, I
My
mean,
team.
hanging off the bike
Yeah.
has a purpose. The purpose is not dragging your knee. And so that light bulb went off in my head one day. And after that day, I just quit thinking about my knee. In fact, I purposely try not to drag my knee now because it's like you said, it's distracting.
Touched on physics. So
Yeah.
it's a big topic. And I keep going back to that thing you once told me. I keep
I'm
going
going to
to
leave. Yeah, go
a
ahead.
gyroscope. It's a freaking gyroscope, and the bike does not want to fall
Well,
over.
two of them. Two of them.
Right. Okay. So let's you think about risk and mental and like, oh, the bikes are going to fall. Uh, It's kind of, and maybe it sounds weird. I think you kind of said it's kind of hard for a motorcycle to fall over unless something else is going on. The person on top of that gyroscope most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that. Well, two
Yeah. I
gyroscopes.
mean, most crashes are due to rider input, not motorcycle, making a mistake on it on its own. So if we're crashing, we did something wrong, or we did something to create that crash. We had an input to the bike that it didn't like, that the physical situation couldn't deal with. And man, believe me, there's a massive zone where the ground and the bike and the tires and the weather and everything will absorb a huge amount. You can stack your risks up, right? And you can have a stack of risks, and they just interject themselves at different times and you don't crash. But when they stack up correctly and they all happen together, bam, right? So what we want to do is try to shorten that stack of risk. But yes, the motorcycle is a couple of gyros. If you think about the definition of velocity or speed, right? That's just the change in distance with respect to time. So we go from A to B distance wise, and then we time it. That's speed.
Mhm.
Okay, simple.
Yeah.
But how speed changes is acceleration, right? The change in speed with respect to time is acceleration. And who cares? Well, we care because different things happen under acceleration and deceleration to the gyros
Mm.
that you can't see. But how long does it take to switch a physical spinning gyro from positive acceleration to negative acceleration? About a nanosecond.
The biology too, right, of a human is something that I've been learning, and I did learn this in the school, is that, biologically we are not designed to go, like our eyes, our reflexes, everything is not designed to go any faster than walking or running pace. And so you get on a motorcycle and everything is against the laws of how we were built biologically,
Yeah,
right?
I just think that we're creatures of habit, and we get used to dealing with the environment that we live in, that we exist in, and as a creature of habit, if you stare at the corner all
Mm.
day today, you're going to be better at staring at the corner tomorrow, because that's how we are built as humans. We're always trying to become more efficient. That's a pretty cool thing,
Mm.
right? So when we hop on a motorcycle and we're not used to seeing the world going by at 160 miles an hour, it's strange and it's scary, And all those the fear connected things happen, tunnel
Mm.
vision, tents on the bars, tents everywhere. All that stuff happens because it's unnatural, but you do adapt to it. If you keep doing it, you're going to be better tomorrow.
Right. So you keep doing it. And so that's now not everyone has the luxury of being able to do it all the time, right?
Yeah,
A lot of us do. I did last year, I did my most days ever. I did 18 days in a season. If you're only going to a track once in a while and you really want to get better at a track, outside of, reading and talking to people like you and having a plan, are there things you can do to prepare yourself mentally in other ways?
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I have track maps of
Yeah.
all the tracks that I go to. Um, and I study those. And there's a method to learning tracks, and I'm sure everybody's method is different. If 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 we don't know the track, we need to know it.
I'm going to put a picture up here when I edit of you and the track map attached to my van at the last track day I did.
Yeah,
And you put the track map up on my van. Remember,
yeah, yeah.
Rick got the track map laminated and printed, and we put it on the on my van.
So, because I think this is important. If nobody listens to any of this other than this next few minutes, this is good. Well,
Okay.
important. I hope. So, what I've discovered in my time working with students and also being a student for all of these years, what I think is an absolute is to know how to steer. If you don't know how to steer your motorcycle, you need to learn. And it's not a secret. It's push on the inside bar. Nobody needs to make it a big complicated thing. You can push on the inside bar, you can pull on the outside bar. That's kind of a mess, or you can do both. But know how to do that very specifically. If you are having trouble with that or you don't know how to do that, I've met so many people, most people, I'm going to say 98% of the people that I have met could not answer that question
Mm.
articulately. There's an absolute. How many different things can a motorcycle do? Keith told us this many, many, many times.
I mean,
Change direction,
yeah,
change
yeah,
change speed.
yeah.
That's
Keith,
all motorcycles do.
I'll put a picture of him up here somewhere.
Right.
I hope we did interview him next, actually. But you're right. I remember when I first learned about counter steering, and I was like, and then what I started doing is I started overthinking about it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to counter steer. Well, wait, you do it
Yeah.
anyway. You just don't know it. But when
Yeah.
you understand the push pull, uh, the looseness on the bars in that push pull situation is so important, because otherwise you're just kind of fighting the bike, right? Where it's a push and it's a pull. And it's just you could almost do it with no hands. It's that good, right? Because and for me that was groundbreaking. But if you're like this, the gyro is gonna be like this, right? And
Yeah.
it's just a push and a push. When I remember when that started happening, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm passing people for the first time.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really great. That's so
yeah,
fun to hear that happening for you, man. It's like, because I remember being there. It's so fun.
yeah.
We just want everybody to be able to do it and do it safely. That's basically kind of just how I feel. Once we figure a lot of this stuff out, I feel bad when I see somebody that doesn't get it, but I don't know them, and I'm not just going to walk up to somebody and start talking. People do that. It's kind of weird,
But I've
but
seen you try. I mean, I've seen you try when someone wants to learn, and then
yeah.
they kind of don't, and then they do. You're fast as fuck. I mean, you're super humble, but you are fast as fuck. Let's be clear,
What
dude.
we know right now, before that goes out into the ether, there are.
Well, Tony Elias is faster than you, and he's in the poster behind you, which I actually want to talk a bit about too, because I know you've had some coaching from him. But how did you go for 16 years without crashing? Was when you're as fast as you are?
Once we know specifically how to steer, what's the next most important thing? Okay, so steering is an absolute. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot ride a motorcycle without steering it, right? Can't do it. It's
Yeah.
an absolute. There's no argument. Nobody can argue that. If you can't steer, if you can't make the bike change direction, you're not riding a motorcycle. unless you're like one of those drag strip guys, but they still probably have to steer, right? So is changing speed an absolute? No, it's not. But that's the other thing motorcycles do. But changing speed is not an absolute. I mean, you know, you could ride around a racetrack and steer at the exact same speed, no problem, right? So we need to start keeping track of things that have to happen, right? And steering is the only one. The only one. You could hang your butt off the wrong side of the motorcycle. You can still ride around the track if you're steering and you're doing other things correctly. You know what I'm saying?
Is it? But I think what you're getting to is there's something deliberate about. There's a difference between being deliberate about steering and not.
Yes, yes. Most of us grow up learning how to steer bikes. What's really going on there is your brain is figuring out, you're pushing on both sides, but your brain is figuring out which side is making you go where you want to go, and you just go that way. It's your brain giving the
I
inputs
see
to
what
your
you're going.
hands. And
So
that's how we
yeah.
all are steering when we come off the street. But what we want to do is get rid of that automation and do it, excuse me, very specifically, very, very specifically. How hard and how long do I need to push on the bar for this corner? That is part of the plan. If we're not doing that, it needs to be integrated into your plan, because we really all should be doing it. Because the next most important thing is the line, right? And I got a big pet peeve about the race line.
But you and I talked about this. I mean, when you talk about the high line, you know,
Yeah.
so let's just wind this back a little. So this also gets back to like what you can do off the track, because one of the things you taught me was go onto YouTube and look up that track and watch that track and get that visual imprint in your mind about what the track looks like, not just the book, but hopefully ride someone that's a good rider.
Anywhere you can get it.
Right, anywhere you can get it. You don't even have to be on a motorcycle to do any of this. And that's super useful. But you didn't answer my question. Like, how did you go 16 years without crashing?
Okay, so
Maybe
I
you
was
don't know.
working on, I was taking a nibble out of that answer.
Okay.
Basically, let me try to sum it up. Planning, implementing the video camera. Okay, so a lot of people, I think I had a tough time even convincing you and some of our buddies to put cameras on your bike.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it
on the
for
bike now.
15 years. Right? I remember strapping a stupid video camera on my bike, and all the power and everything I had wired to the back, right? And just this big thing was like taped on there. Because what we want to do is become good students and coaches of ourselves independently. And one way to do that is to watch your riding. And here's one of the things I've noticed is a lot. I can show somebody, either me or somebody else riding around a racetrack, and they'll go, "Oh, dang, you know, that's pretty cool." Or, you know, maybe it's you know, some MotoGP rider, and it's like, "Dang, that's amazing. That's so amazing." But I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at where is he braking, and where is he steering, and where is he hitting the apex? And is his knee over the paint? And if it's not over the paint, why isn't it over the paint? And how is he rolling on the gas? What does that sound like? You know, is he getting it pinned really early, and why not? And so we need that information about ourselves. And so videotape every single time you get on the motorcycle, and then you got to put in the hours. Man, I can't tell you how many hours I'm in my hotel room, you know, when I'm out of town for school or whatever, and I'm sitting in my hotel room watching my videos instead of out having a good time. But if you don't practice observing, then it just looks like you're just one of those guys that's saying, "Man, that's really cool." You need to get beyond that and become a good observer. And the only way to become a good observer is to observe a whole bunch.
Yeah. Seems
So
obvious.
that's a big thing to me, being able to ride and not crash, because I want to fix as many problems as I can by myself. It makes me more confident, and it also is something I need to fix. right? So then when I go to the track, the coach can observe me and I can fix something else. And then all I'm really doing is fixing stuff all the time. And I want to go fast, but I don't want to accumulate risk, in doing that. Tell me, what
I
are
mean,
you doing on
yeah,
this corner? What are you doing
yeah,
on that corner?
yeah. You know,
Having the line is faster and it's safer. The high
oh,
line
gee.
is the fast line and the safe line.
Oh, I see, Professor Steve. Now we're getting Professor. So there's this, people say, well, I'm just scratching the surface on this thing. Well, we haven't even found the surface yet. There's just so much to scratch before you
Yeah,
get to the surface, right?
yeah, yeah.
And my time with you has been that. Glad I met you. I think if I'd met you 20 years ago, I would have been so full of myself, not wanting to learn. But like, I'm just starting to get to the surface after scratching with you for like 5 years. And there
Wow,
is
thank you.
yeah, there's a lot to scratch, right? And when you find that part that you scratch, it just feels good, right? It's like, oh, that's good. I know now. And I think for me, the track has been like that. And in fact, I'm kind of at a junction now, which maybe I should ask your advice on this. Is I love Ducatis. I love Ducatis, and maybe I love the look of them. I love the way they sound. But if I'm honest, yeah, I'm a lot harder to ride on a track than a lot of other bikes I've ridden. I mean, even my V2 Patagali, which is a so-called almost they call it a middleweight sport bike now. It's a leader bike
Yeah,
compared to my little RS660. Like I'm faster on my RS660 Aprilia than I am on my Ducati,
yeah.
and I still had this feeling that maybe I should just buy another 660 because like that's an itch, that's a risk, that's a like there's something about finding when you talk about system, you have two bikes that are almost exactly the same. And now and so a lot of people have to change their bikes all the time. What's your view on that? Like, do you feel like when you find the right fit, just stick at it or just, I'm always changing bikes on the street
No, I
anyways.
think it's okay. I mean, I think it's great. You know, just to add a little bit to that last subject, one of the reasons I also have a have a good time at the track, a successful time at the track is I ride my supermoto in the morning.
You do.
I don't ride my big bike, my leader bike until the afternoon.
I need a photo of that. You got to send me some photos for this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but yes, I mean, some people can't do it. Some people have a difficult time transitioning, but if you have a system for yourself and you know what the rider inputs need to be, you can monitor it, but you have to do, in my opinion, you have to do it specifically. How do the brakes feel? How good are the brakes? What does this power band feel like?
Mm.
Is this going to get me into trouble if I roll on too hard? Or like your Ducati, it's a V2
Yeah.
leader bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that thing probably pulls like a Mike Tyson punch down the
Yeah.
bottom,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, that's you got to know that and just acknowledge it, and then it's going to run out of steam quick. Because I
Mhm.
mean, I had two of those bikes before my Aprilias, and they don't rev, right? So that's a whole. You just need to, when you go to a different bike, you just need to make a little project out of understanding, you know, what it is. Last time I was at the race school, we all got our clocks cleaned by a 14-year-old on a 400.
And we did. We did. We
Oh
did.
my gosh. And he happened to be my partner that day. So I was sitting with him all day. He was a great little kid, but great lesson to be learned. All of us dudes are sitting there, with our cool leader bikes, and it's all about corner speed, right? So we could pass him on the straights, but he
Yes.
was so much faster than us in the corners because we're trying to stop and go with these leader bikes on that particular track. And I mean, it was just the coolest thing to see, man. It was it was
The-
so amazing.
we're gonna be wrapping it up, but because it's getting later. And look, for me, this channel again, this is not about making money at all or any of that shit. It's not about being a influencer. Again, it's someone just said to me, I guess you kind of know some stuff. Why don't you just start a channel? And I laughed about it. I think for you, it's been that way too, right? You have your throttle up instruction, which you started because you just love teaching people. You and I have talked about this, and you just love teaching people.
Yeah.
And for people that want to learn and want to maybe get some of your time, I know you don't do a lot of this. Maybe you can tell me how folks can contact you.
Yeah, just Rick at throttleUp.net.
All right, and I'll put it up here.
Yeah.
And
It's exactly how it sounds.
yeah,
ThrottleUp.net. And then just Rick at.
great.
That's it. Yeah, shoot me questions or whatever. I mean, it feels kind of silly because we both know a lot of instructors that are super, super talented.
Yeah.
But the thing about getting instruction, I think, you know, is you need to get it from lots and lots of different places. And luckily, at the school, man, I don't even know how many different coaches I've had there. Plus, I did um, a few Ken Hill coaching days, and then Tony Ilias. Everybody's, you just have to, get the information, sift through what makes sense to you. Right?
You're an
Yeah,
interesting bloke and you meet the nicest guys on a motorcycle.
yeah, that's very true, including yourself.
I think that the thing that binds us as a community is that what we do is inherently portrayed and is a risk. And whether you're buying a motorcycle from a dealer, motorcycle dealers tend to be a lot nicer than car dealers because I think we kind of all share that
Yeah,
same kind of
right.
risk. Or at the track, we're all out to look after each other, and we all know that we had to start somewhere. And that's what it's all about. So thank you, and I'm gonna get you back on for sure.
Hey, thanks, Angus. I'm flattered that you had me, and that was really fun. Maybe we gave a couple little tidbits there that somebody will take and run with it.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm really kind of nervous. I think Rick, I had the V4S Ducati when I first started learning, and I realized it was too much bike, and it shot my confidence. This is 5 years ago. And now I'm going back to a bigger bike, and I've been on the track a few times, but I've been off the track on it too, twice now actually. And I'm a bit scared of my leader bike, so I'm not quite sure what to
Okay.
do.
So you know how to steer
Yep.
for sure. If you're not 100% sure about the high line, um,
Uh,
discover that.
the high line. What he's talking about is you're talking about the high line in the corner,
You
right?
want to
So,
be riding the high line
mm,
always. The only reason to ride the midline is to pass or to block if you're a racer. And the low line would just be to pass somebody that's riding on the midline. So as a track day rider, just ride the high line. There's no reason to ride the midline or the low line. The high line is faster and it's straighter and it's safer. So stay up there. But what I'm really saying is find someone that can help you know for sure the line. It's easy to say the high line, but you need to know the line. You know what I'm saying? You need to know where it goes. I mean, you're going to go paint to paint, but the line, you still need to know the track. So, wherever the track is, just find somebody that can show you the high line. Don't ask them about the racing line because that's ridiculous. The racing line to 10 guys is 10 different lines.
well, let me ask you this. So you've seen me ride. My line is
Yeah.
pretty good. I think
Yeah.
I think I'm ready for A group.
Yeah.
And so should I, like, because I feel like again, it's a risk stacking. Intermediate, there's either people who think they're intermediate and they're not, they should be in beginner. Um, or there's people that that are sort of opposite. It's you kind of have this mismatch of people, and it's way less predictable. And I hear that in A group, so long as you're predictable, people are going to get closer to you. You're going to have to get used to that. But so long as
Yeah.
you're predictable, you're fine. So should I go out into A group for the first time on my 660 or my Panigale?
I go on your 660 for sure.
Yeah,
For
because I know.
sure.
Yeah,
You're talking to a guy who rides a supermoto all morning.
in A
So
group.
you're saying go out. I'm assuming you're talking about the first session,
Yeah,
660.
yeah,
For multiple reasons, 660. Just work your way up to the V2, to the 100, to the leader bike, right?
yeah.
Yeah, don't just go out on that thing, especially if you're a little bit nervous about it. But what I was going to say is once I know you're already confident steering, you're going to ride the high line and you're going to know what that line is for sure. Then what the plan would be is to separate your rider inputs for a few sessions. So there's 4 things for a good corner, right? There's setup, steering, apex, and exit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all 4 of those things can be broken down into minutia, right? But generally speaking, just set up. You don't have to rush. Steer. Practice how hard and how long, right? Hit the apex where you want to hit it, because you know where you want to hit it, because you know the high line,
Yeah.
right? And know where you're going to exit so that you can have success in the next corner. And so what I'm really talking about is the rhythm you were talking about earlier, the orchestra. Turn it into eighth notes, or excuse me, whole notes. Whole notes. Are you a musician?
No, but I like to think I am.
Okay, bong,
Well, yeah.
bong, separate everything, which means don't go out there and try to, cut the throttle and grab the brake right away. Move your ass over, get ready to steer, let off the gas, wait, steer, wait. You're just waiting to get on the gas, right?
Yeah.
Wait for it, and then start rolling on the gas and just separate everything. And then throughout the day, that's what I do every morning, dude. Every morning.
See, this is a coaching session. This is great. This is a great way to end it, actually.
This is how online
Yeah.
coaching is.
This is online coaching. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a great way to actually end it, because this is something I'm worried about. So you're also starting to get into a little bit about bracketing, aren't you? You kind of, which is
You're
a whole
bracketing. It's bracketing. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But it's basically, you just can't be in a rush, because what all of us really want to do, a lot of guys want to do, is just go out there and just bust it out, because a lot of guys have stuff to prove, or you're not going to get past. There's all these people you don't know, and you're not going to be you're not going to let them pass you. You have a mission. Your mission is the plan that you put together. So what you want to go out there and do is, don't go super fast in the first session. Just get there, accomplish your setup, accomplish your steering, accomplish the apex, and accomplish the exit, and separate it out. And then throughout the day, you bring that time signature between things closer together. So if you're going really fast, you're already going to be set up, and you're going to steer, you're going to brake and steer, right? And then you're just going to get right back on the gas, even if it's maintenance throttle. And then you're just going to roll it on as soon as you get the bike pointed. You don't have to be that aggressive in the morning or ever. Just, you can coast. You can just go into that corner. You know how good scrub is. You're going to scrub a lot off.
Be predictable, but be predictable.
Go into that corner, steer the bike, wait, roll on the gas. And if you can roll on the gas sooner throughout the day, then do that. That's my advice. If we're having butterflies, or you're trying to get used to a new bike, separate.
And
Does that make sense?
And that, my friends, is the end of the session, because that is Professor Rick at his best. Love that. Thank you.
Hey, man, love you, baby.
Rock and roll, man. Out.
Give me a report back. I want to hear.
Okay, man. I will. See you, bro.
All right. Yep. See ya. Bye.